The public wishing to address the Board of Education on matters within the jurisdiction of the board, but not on this agenda, may do so during the public comment period for up to 3 minutes. Comments submitted by the public who are not in physical attendance at the meeting will be read aloud by the chair. Spoken comments will only be accepted for members of the public who are in physical attendance at the meeting site noted above. Do we have anyone in the room for public comments within the jurisdiction of the board, but not on this agenda? Do we have anyone at the meeting room to speak? Do we have anybody on with public comments that were submitted in writing?
None were received.
All right, we'll move on then. Minutes. I would like to, as chair, I noticed we received a packet via email that includes minutes in it, but I don't see it on what was posted on the web for the public. Am I missing it, or is it up there, or did we miss it?
They only get posted after they've been approved.
Do we want as a committee to approve minutes without having a draft available for public review?
I think we should have a draft available.
I think what I would like to do, unless the committee disagrees, why don't we hold off on approving those minutes? And I think it's important for the public to be able to see, especially since before people have claimed that our minutes have had inaccuracies in it. I just prefer to have the minutes available for people to look at as a draft before this committee does final approval. Does anybody have an opinion about that? That would be otherwise?
I agree with you, Kevin, and I do have a correction to the minutes. My name is spelled inaccurately in the minutes. The correct spelling is as you can see here, S-H-I-R.
All right. Staff will get that corrected.
And I did tell Heidi that I was supposed to be. Heidi, do you want to tell them, or do you? Okay.
Yes, Ms. Emerson did contact me this afternoon and let me know that at the previous meeting, she did abstain as well. So there is a correction under item D with 2 exemptions by committee members, Jones and Emerson, which will be corrected and reflected in the updated minutes.
Heidi, your mic is really difficult for me. I might be the only one, but I'm missing a lot of your words, and I have it turned up really loud on this end.
It looks like it's muted.
Yeah.
From our end anyway, it looks like it's muted.
Could you repeat what you said, please?
Hold on one second. We're actually, we're here at the district office, so we're kind of spacing ourselves out so that we're all around the table. She's moving a little bit closer to the mic here.
Okay.
Okay, so as I stated, I received an email today from Ms. Emerson indicating at the last minute, at the last meeting, under the draft minutes, item D, that there should have been 2 abstentions by committee member Jones and Emerson. And I did want to indicate that the public does receive the packet as well as the committee, because it goes out to anybody who subscribes to MPUSD. Anybody we send our packets out to receives it. So the general public does receive it, the minutes.
But I would like to note that that's a fairly small list in comparison to the population. So online, can the packet be online? With the
Yeah, we'll post the minutes online.
Yeah, we'll do that. We will, let's note here that the minutes, we'll make sure that the minutes from the last meeting are up for approval at the next meeting. And District General Counsel Devin Lincoln is here. Hello. We have there are no.
Hi,
public...
Kevin. I'm here. I'm going to just monitor.
Well, we have no public comments, and I did express a concern that other committee members have expressed too. We are approving we had for on the agenda approval of draft minutes from the last meeting, but they were only available to the public if they were subscribing to the packet that we received. So if you're a member of the public going to the website, you would not see those draft minutes. Are we doing okay to postpone these minute approval until the next meeting and have draft minutes up for the public to look at?
Yes, I think that'd be appropriate. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And do you think we need to vote on that, or is it just?
No, I think we can go ahead and the board can essentially table it, or sorry, the committee can table it, consideration of the minutes and not act on it right now.
All right. Review financials for Measure P and project updates.
That would be me.
Yes.
So this is Paul Anderson. I'm the Senior Director of Facilities for MPUSD, Capital Facilities for MPUSD, and I'll be going through the Measure P, Series C, and Series D at this time. In your packet, you will notice you have a financial update for the projects. There's not too many in Measure P. In both series, you see that they're separated by C and D, and the monies that was spent on each project in each of those. So starting with Los Arbolos, there was only about $100,000 spent there. This is a project that we put on hold. We're just starting to dust off. This was a mod that we were going to do at Los Arbolos. We're seeing what we can do there now that we still have the school closed and what we can get accomplished. It appears that this one will be mainly a PG&E upgrade because we can't do anything else to the site until we upgrade PG&E service, and then we'll upgrade the electricity and HVAC at the site as well as do some modernization. But without PG&E, I can't do anything. So we're going to resize the distribution of electrical there. Marina High Culinary is just about complete. That was closed. We're just waiting for final DSA 1 form. That is the final piece of a project that is DSA saying we've done everything we were supposed to do to meet their requirements, and we get a letter saying that the buildings were built per plan and they've been accepted by DSA. So we're waiting on that. That's why it's still open. Monterey High School, new classrooms. This would be the science classrooms, and this is ongoing. We're hoping to have that project done in mid-March of this year in time for the children to return to school. That one's coming along very well. It is late. We had a lot of unforeseen conditions, and we're working with the contractor to get it buttoned up before the middle of March. We had Seaside High new classrooms. This, as you'll see, is the only money spent in Series C for this year. It's the only money that will be spent in Series C for this year. With this $33,000, Measure P Series C is zero. So we've totally exhausted that. Our goal is, and I'll get to that in a second when I get to the end. So that's great. Seaside High School library upgrade, that was a small charge that was made to that project. That is actually closed, and we'll just absorb that into the project. And last but not least is district office administrative costs. That's salaries for staff and equipment and supplies, and that will be journal entry at the end of the year to be spread into the projects that are above it. We try to keep all of our costs for our department in the project. So we take it into, we list them here so we can see what they are, but then we move them into the project based on a ratio of how much project dollars were spent in the year, and then they get that value of the spread. So that's typically what we do, and it's general accounting practice for bond offices, because if there was no bond, there would be no bond office. So those are the only projects we have currently open in Measure P Series D and C Series C. So what we're trying to do is, before the end of 2020, 2021, is try to expend all of Measure P Series D and completely get rid of Series P, Measure P this year, so that we don't have to report on it anymore. And we will have fulfilled that obligation of, this was a 2010 bond. We need to spend it. So we're working on diligently on getting that done. So that's P. We want to jump into the detail. Any questions on the projects themselves?
Yeah, I do. On the Los Arbola's work, am I getting right that the problem there is that PG&E has not been responsive to the school district? Is that what the issue is?
No, we had several projects that we put on hold pending school consolidation review, and just to make sure that we're not remodeling schools that we believe should be closed.
Okay.
We're just trying to make sure we're spending our money at the right locations. So Los Arbolas has been decided to be moving forward. So we've dusted off those plans and we're going to move them forward.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions on those?
No, I just wanted to say that the reporting has improved like leaps and bounds in the year I've been on the committee. This last report is really excellent, and thank you for the investment in this and the change. It's really great.
Good, thank you.
Yes.
How many schools might be closed?
That has not been decided
Or
yet.
could-
It's still being considered by the
Oh.
board. We've only had 2 informational items with the board, and we have not taken action on any of the items that for school consolidation at this time.
Okay,
I just had it on the agenda last week, so discussion continues on that. And it's under the word reconfiguration, I think is the code word when you see that on the agenda. So take a look at it whenever it appears. Charmaine?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to get clear, Paul, that $1,000, could you go back to that slide? When you say you're dusting off that Los Arbolos money, that's all that was left, and you've spent it with PG&E, and now you have to go forward with a project there, and that money will come out of the next bond? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, that's all the money that we've expended this year. So
Oh.
far in the project. That's just the expenses this year in this quarter.
Okay,
Now, we were asked to add the vendor report, and that just shows you how much money was given to each contractor within the bond series that we had. We typically go through the encumbrance report, which is the detailed warrants. So unless there's some questions on the vendor report, this was just included because we've been asked to include the vendor report just to see what we've been spending with each vendor on each bond. That makes sense? Okay, so I'll jump over to the encumbrance report for Measure P encumbrances. And again, these are from 10/1 to 12/31/2020. So the idea here is to not have you review expenditures that you've already reviewed in the previous meeting. So I'm trying to keep your focus on the 3 months that have just passed, and we'll continue that. And then at the end of the year, we'll have a full report that has everything. Does that work for everyone? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so Marina High Culinary, Avila was the contractor on that. As you can see, the monies that we've spent with them. The Department of General Services, this is a plan check fee. This is DSA, Department of the State Architect, and who reviews our plan. And then we have project management. This is RGM Kramer. So we pay RGM Kramer monthly based on the projects that they work on and the amount of hours they work on those projects. So this is a little different than what we've done in the past, which was a flat fee for each month. This is a little bit better in the sense that we're only paying for the work that's actually occurred in that month. It's a different way of doing it, but I think it's more efficient, and it's more transparent. because you're seeing how much money is being spent on each project individually. SFA is the architect, which is the bottom of page 1, and that's just the architect fees for construction administration during the project. And then we have US Bank. This is retention. This is retention being paid back to the contractor. We hold back 5% of their project, and we typically pay them 5% at the end when they're done and we get certification. We do a notice of completion that's filed with the county, which basically gives all subcontractors and suppliers the ability to say, hey, I haven't been paid, don't pay them. So we try to hold back and make sure that everybody is whole at the end of a project. ARC is just our document company that produces our blueprints for us or plans for us when we need them. This is basically the paper plans being copied and sent to us. We like full-size plans, not the half-size, so you can see stuff. And CAW Architects was an architect fee that we had on the project as well. Oh, I'm sorry, I moved on to Monterey High School. Sorry, I jumped ahead. So the retention was, and then we start Monterey High School, which is ARC. CAW is the architect on this one. This is what we paid them. CDWG is a technology company that we buy a lot of our technology from, and they install it for us at our projects. So they're usually a separate contract that we have with them, and we consider this furniture equipment. Then we have the container shop, which is a storage containers, which is where we store stuff when we don't have room for it. DMC Construction is the contractor on this project. EKC Enterprises is another entity that is in IT. They pretty much specialize in building custom servers for us, and they built one for the Science Center that our IT department had required to run all the equipment that is in the science building. GBMI is our DSA inspector that is required by law to have the project continually inspected as we're building it to make sure that it's built per the DSA approved plans. And that's what we pay them $1 gazillion for. Moore Twining and Associates is our special inspecting lab. They are the ones that come in and test rebar. They test break strengths. They test pull tests. They do concrete slump tests. They do welding tests. They basically make sure everything that is supposed to be tested based on DSA's requirements are tested and pass. RGM Kramer is the project manager. And so as I go through these, I'm not going to elaborate on the types of services provided if I've already discussed them, just so save you some time.
Fine.
Seaside High Library upgrades, not much going on there. Just a little bit of closeout on that one. Project management, it looks like we had a couple hours that were billed at the last minute on that one for the closeout process. And last but not least is our favorite one. This is district office administrative costs. This is, you'll see it back on the vendor one as well. The 29,000, that will be spread to the projects that are in Measure P that were open during this time frame. Those at the end of the year, this account should be zero and will be zero at the end of the year. So that's everything for Measure P warrants. Any questions? Okay.
Carry on.
Mary, now we're in Measure I. Measure I, as you may be aware, and for Richard, I'll let you know that we have two bonds. Measure I is one bond, but we have two different buckets. We have one bucket, which is short-term financing, less than 10 years. We try to spend money out of the short term that is not going to be there in 30 years. And then in the long-term bonds, we use for building and capital improvements that should be around in 30 years. That way the homeowners are not paying for devices, laptops, and the like that we know will not be around in 7 years. Okay. So that's Measure I Series A is short term. Measure I Series B is long term. And if I could ask if anybody is not muted, talking to themselves, it helps with the background noise.
Can everyone mute, please?
Thank you. Appreciate it. That helps. All right. So now we have the projects that we have going on in Measure I. The first one comes up as Crumpton Elementary School campus improvements. This is a big project. This is one that we started. We have multiple phases of this. We've already finished phase 1A, phase 1 and phase 1-2, and that was the paving around the campus and the drop off and the new bus drop off. That's all been done. The hardscape around the front of the campus has been completed, and we removed Crumpton Lake, which used to be at the front entrance, which was a depression that had water always standing in it whenever it rained. So that's all been done. And now we're moving on to design development for the admin building, which will be the admin building, which will house all of admin at the front of the campus, as well as 12 classrooms. We haven't decided what 12 classrooms will go in that building, but we know we're going to build a building with 12 classrooms and all the office space needed for admin. This will alleviate admin being in the center of the campus, and will remodel the admin offices to be new classrooms. So that's Crumpton. That's one of our biggest projects right now. Still in design. There's 3 types of designs. We do schematic design, which is basically blocks on a plan. Hey, this is where we think the building's going to go. Then we get into design development, which says this is what needs to be in the building, such as we're going to do TK, we're going to do K, we're going to do art, we're going to do music, and kind of more defines it. The last phase is construction documents. We call it CD. And that's where we get into the nitty gritty. How do you connect stuff? How does a wall connect to the ceiling? And all the stuff that's required by the contractor to be successful to build it per the DSA approved plans. So right now, like I mentioned, we're in design development with Crumpton. We've had our first stakeholders meeting with staff and parents and interested parties that have been compiled by Sarah, the principal out at Crumpton. And it went very well. We have another one scheduled for next week. We want to make sure we involve the site as much as possible, as well as M&O in the beginning, so we capture what everybody is looking for in these projects. Del Monte School Campus.
I'm glad you got the puddle out of there before the EPA declared it a waterway of the United States.
Yeah. I did notice that Del Monte is spelled wrong again, and we'll get that fixed. In the Del Monte campus improvements, we're done there. The only thing we're waiting on right now is the maintenance period of the landscaping to end, which will end in the middle of March. That project is done and ready for children to be back, and it looks really good. And that was the creating 2 new kinder classrooms in the campus in the permanent building and removing a portable. Foothill Elementary. This is just a DSA closeout. You have to pay $500 every time you reopen a file with DSA. So that's what this was, to get Foothill, the last project for Foothill, closed out properly. Then we have Central Coast High School campus improvements. We did the PG&E upgrade, and we did the paving and painting. We did the painting. We did not do the paving. We did the painting. So we'll change that as well. That was just painting the exterior of the campus. King modernization. This is a really big project. We modernized out at King Elementary. Not only did we modernize several wings, we are also doing the TK restrooms. We did the main restrooms on campus, as well as the ones in the multi-purpose room. We had a lot of these projects that we kind of had in our back pocket, but we were waiting for time slots. And because they were closed, it seemed move them all up, get them all done as fast as humanly possible, so that when we can get children back in, the school is even better than, this was almost a 1.5 year plan that we moved up and got done in the last 6 months. So that's been great. And we're continuing that. That one should be complete in the next month, and that would be the final restroom remodel that we're doing there. Everything else has been done and signed off. Marina Del Mar Preschool, we've been doing a lot of work out there. Marina Del Mar Preschool, they're never closed. So them being closed now is our opportunity to go in and get something done. So we've done everything we could out there, and we believe we'll be ready for them to have students come back before the end of February. And we've done the painting, we've done window coverings, we've done PG&E upgrades, we've done paving around the whole campus, new stencils so it looks all pretty. And then there's a Marina Del Mar grant where they got some state funding that we're helping them with. We've already gotten rid of the portable that was in front of the campus. That's gone. We'll put a new modular building in its place that will be more permanent. And we're remodeling their other 2 portables that they have on campus.
All my thinking on this here is it's always good to tell the school board and the public how you're taking advantage of the schools not being in person right now to do this kind of work, so that it looks like the district is being smart about how it's managing its construction. So I like to hear that. It's a small positive in a big sea of negatives.
Yes, and we do a monthly newsletter, and we have a big flyer that's about to be published soon, a 14-page flyer that's going out. But every month we try to do an update on what's exciting and what's cool that we've done in the last month.
Oh, the bond newsletter?
Yes.
Yes, I just tweeted that out this morning. I know one just came out a couple days ago.
Perfect. Marina High School campus improvements. This is everything that we were doing there. The gym is complete, of course, as you know. We had some gates and parking lot lights in the back of the school that need to be done. Exterior, we painted the whole exterior of the campus. We just started the science medical in the old locker room, so that just kicked off. And then we did the restroom repairs, which was basically remodeling the restrooms, putting in back in kind, window replacement. And we'll also, which isn't on here yet, is the restrooms as part of the science medical project that we separated them, and now we're marrying them back together. We did that because DSA decided that we were spending too much money. And if we did that, it triggered the over 50% rule, which means you had to do a complete remodel as opposed to a partial remodel. Basically tear it down and start over, and we didn't have the money to do that. So we wanted to do the restrooms. They weren't required, so we pulled them out of the project. Now we're putting them back in, and it's been approved by DSA. It's one of those things you just go, well, why are you making us do that? But we'll do it because you asked us to. Marina Vista Elementary. Again, this is electrical mod that we're dusting off as well. It's very similar to what we talked about previously. It needs to be done. We're trying to get as much done as possible with HVAC upgrades in anticipation of students and teachers coming back. We've done almost 90% of our HVAC systems have been replaced. Now we're just trying to capture the few that did not get upgraded. Okay. Marina High School campus improvements we talked about. Marina Vista Marshall Elementary, that was just a DSA fee. Monterey, we painted, we did some preliminary paving and traffic studies, and the lower field, which is waiting on the draft EIR to be finalized and approved by the board in the future. Olson Elementary was just portable investments. We did some investment in some of our portables by replacing roofs on portables that were in good condition with the exception of the roof. And we knew that we might need for future. So we did Olson, we did Seaside Children's Center as well. We replaced the roofs on all of those portables there, which really makes a difference. Then we get into Seaside High School campus improvements. We've done a lot of work out there, and we've run into a few things as we were out there and we had them fixed. One was a 300-foot sewer line that had to be replaced. One was a water line that broke that burst that had to be replaced. And because we had a Monterey Peninsula Engineering there, we just asked them to help us with those, with the engineer. The pool utility, we basically redid the whole pool system. So the pool wasn't updated, but all the heaters, the filters, and all the chlorination and chemical in storage was all updated and improved. And we oversized them, so in case we ever build a different pool, it can handle it. Fire alarm upgrades has just started. That's where we're consolidating all the fire alarms into one complete fire alarm. New classrooms are done. Install walls at sites, that was done. That was walls in between rooms. We had opened up walls, now we wanted to close them up. And then we replaced 5 portables, which was great. This is tail end. And then the sports field. If anybody hasn't seen the drone footage of the sports field, that's fantastic. It's looking great. Getting a lot of good press on that. Parking lot lights and stadium fencing was just to clean some stuff up that we were there. We might as well get it done. Students weren't there. We wanted to, again, get it done. And last but not least is our district-wide improvements, which is the first one, 800, line 32. That's spread. That will be spread by the end of the year. That's just overhead costs. Staff laptops. We didn't have any hits there, but we will in the next quarter. Student laptops. Again, getting one-to-one for our students. Spread holding, you can see, is very low, 959. And then there's another one at 92 down below, line 40, which is the big one. That's all of our salaries that will be moved. That's mine, Jody's, and other costs in that one. Then down to school network switches. That's again another one that we did, short-term bond funds. Special needs buses, short-term bond funds, new passenger van, and shop truck that just came in. So we're just about done with transportation and IT. We have a few open projects, but not many. And these will all be the short term. And that's it for the project overview. Any comments or questions that you have on Measure I, Series A and B?
I have one question. I lost your sound when you, I think we're making a pretty profound announcement. You said that 90% of the HVAC have been replaced in the district. Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
Wow, great.
Yeah, so we're trying to complete the other ones that we that need to be upgraded, and we have 3, and they're in the process of being worked on right now.
A great thing to advertise to the board and public as people begin debating when do kids come back to school. That timing on the HVAC projects, which some people said, oh, that's so boring, let's do something exciting instead. Boy, that was good planning to decide to do those.
Yeah, and the great thing is that all the new systems have the MERV 13 filter capability, which is great. And that's what we've been installing on the newer units. So we just want to bring our older units up to that standard as well. Okay, encumbrance report. You ready for that?
Yes.
Okay, so I skipped over the vendor. It's there for your perusal when you want. And again, it's by vendor, so you can see who's getting the money on all of our projects, and it'll list the vendor and what projects they're working on.
Excuse me, I was
So if I may make it,
I was muted and didn't realize it. I had a question. Appreciate the detail. Do you have a figure, say, on the percentage of work you expect to get accomplished and the percentage of the bond funds that have been used?
you're muted, Paul.
I can get that information for you. I don't have it handy. I know that I just did a 2019-2020 overview for our insurance carrier, and we spent $43 million in 2019-2020 fiscal year in the bond program.
Yeah.
And I believe the year before it was 27 million. So we're on track to continue to be responsible in spending the bond funds as soon as we have them available. Trying to get them spent within 4 years of the sale of the bonds is typically what we try to do. And then we'll go out for another sale if it's warranted. But you had asked for the percentage of bond spent?
And the percentage of the work you expect to get done.
Well, we'll never get the percentage of work done because our bond never covers everything
Yeah.
we need to have done.
Understood.
So it will cover what we ask it to cover. So that one's a little harder number to come by, but the percentage of bond spent, that's easy, and I'll get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem. We'll look that up and get that out to the whole COC committee. Heidi will send that out when I get that, probably by tomorrow, or Friday, I should say, Friday.
Well, your report for Measure P is going to be 100% spent at the next meeting.
I hope so. That's my
Well,
goal. I thought
so-
I was going to. I thought I was going to do that for Measure P Series C, but I had $33,000 that wasn't spent.
So Mr. Dayton, for the next group for the encumbrance reports, if I may make a suggestion, if maybe we wanted to call page by page and ask if there's any questions, or how would you like to accomplish that? Because there are about 43 pages, I believe.
Yes, that's what we typically do. And unless the committee members want to do something different, we usually, and it's up here, I've got my page here and PDF, but why don't we just go page by page using what's in front of us on the screen? And we'll look at each page and I'll ask, are we ready? And then we'll just move to the next page. So let's start with the first and go from there. So first page here, and what we're looking at is any questions you have about who's getting the money, what was spent, if the description is ambiguous, or if you see redundancy, spelling errors, this is your time to speak.
I will caution on spelling errors because this comes right out of our Escape software system. So if it's wrong in Escape, it's going to be wrong on this report.
Okay. Any questions with this first page, page 53 and 95? All right, next one. Any questions? Next one. Any questions? Next one. Any questions? Next one. There's that $500. Any questions? Next one. Any questions? Next one. Any questions? Next one. And there would be an example of a spelling issue, Commercial Solutions Group.
Yep, that's actually how they spell it.
Oh, that's the one that spells their name weird. That's right.
We bring that up that's the third time, I think.
Yeah, no, someday I'll realize, oh, that's the one that spells it differently. All right, any questions? Next one. Any questions? Next one. Question on the, oh, actually, that's okay. Any questions on that one? Next one. Any questions? 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 Next one.
Halfway through.
Good. Any questions? Next one. By the way, my kids love the paint job at the high school.
Which one?
Monterey High School, the painting.
Okay. Yep. We did all 3 high schools, all 4 high schools this summer.
Great. Any questions? Next one. And for the Monterey High School lower field, that's the environmental impact report, correct?
Yes, that's Ascent is doing the environmental impact report for us, and that is the cost so far for that. And also there's some legal fees in here associated with that.
Yes. Any questions? Next one. 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 Any questions? These are all student laptops, correct?
I have a question that I should have asked before. And I'm new and this is, a lot to digest, but the date of these purchase orders is the date they were invoiced or paid or worked, what is the date?
Depends on the transaction. So we're on the student laptops. If we look at the top one where it's purchase order 1543, 1012 is where we created the PO for $10,000. On 1109 is where we made a payment.
I'm sorry. Could you just give me the page number? Because I can't see your screen very well and I'm looking at my own PDF. What page is that?
Page 37.
Thank you. I lost track as I was formatting the question. Okay, so I'm on page 37. Go ahead.
So the 1012 at the top of the page, 1012, that's where we created the PO. And then we reduced the PO on 11/9 by that amount of 468. And then under expenditure on 11/17, we paid a bill, 3 bills on 11/17, and that's the amount that we paid.
Okay. And so that means in between 10/12 and 11/17, the work was done. Is that
Correct.
right? Okay.
Perfect. Very well
Thank
done.
I appreciate that.
Good.
Yeah, committee members, you might have questions about things that go by. Don't be afraid to ask. Some of this stuff we've discussed this in the past. So, in my mind, it's been answered. But if you see something like why are they spending money on the Monterey County Weekly, or why is this fee going to this or that, or is it legal to spend money on payroll for people and facilities? Those are good questions to ask if you don't know them, and they'll answer them again. All right, let's move on to page 90 of 95, almost done. Any questions? Next page. Any questions? Next page. Any questions? Next page. Any questions? All right, we've looked through the expenditures. Oh, wait, one more page, two more. Any questions? Last page. Any questions? All right. Great.
Thank you, Heidi. You did a great job. Thank you, Kevin, for sponsoring that. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. It's tedious, but you know what? I always want people to know we're looking through all these. So next we have on the agenda approve annual report for 2018-2019 fiscal year. And as noted in the agenda here, we had asked for some grammatical errors and a few other minor things to be fixed. Do we have any further remarks about that?
Mr. Dayton, I think that was item G we just reviewed.
Oh, did I miss something? Hold on.
No, yeah. So we're actually on H, which
Oh,
is
that's
future
right. Well,
meeting dates.
yes, we've only looked at measure P. We've got to move on
No.
to measure I.
No, so I should have pointed this out earlier. No, we've actually reviewed, we've completed item E, F, G already, and D, E, F, and G. So Mr. Anderson went through measure P series, measure P, all the expenditures through that program. And then he also reviewed measure I, A, and B, the project updates, and all the warrants. So we're actually on item H. You might be looking at last.
What? I was looking at the minutes by mistake.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry
yes.
about that. And that was the thing that was under the warrant activity for
Got
measure I. Yeah, I was wondering
Did
about
the same
that
thing
because
myself.
I thought we had, you know what, on the, looking at those minutes, we took an action on that annual, that annual report went to the board, right? With our approval.
It will.
Mhm.
We haven't seen that report.
That might be another item to, let's see. Oh, it's listed here. The committee moved to approve with the presented changes. Okay, we're all set.
So we're
All right,
we're
future-
on item
future
H.
Meeting dates, future meeting dates, item H. We got May 1st, May 5th, August 4th, and November 3rd. Without everybody pulling up their calendars, anybody see any potential conflicts with those dates that staff didn't realize?
Yeah, those dates were previously set by the committee. So these are just the next three in that. We do not have anything scheduled after the 3rd, November 3rd.
Okay. Committee member comments. Does anyone have a comment? I do have one comment for you, probably something that should be said by the board, but I'll say it as the district proceeds with talking about which schools to close or other arrangements. I predict that you'll have the usual critics out in the public saying, oh, you spent money on this school and now you're closing it. What a wasteful district you are. Are you keeping track? How will, is there a plan for the facilities staff to handle these sort of comments as they begin to come later in the year?
So maybe I missed the question. What was, could you repeat the question, Mr. Dayton?
Yes, the question is, will the facilities staff be ready later this year when decisions are start being made to close schools, and then people say, "But you spent bond money on these. You're foolish for spending money on things that are being closed." Are you going to be prepared to have categories of what was spent and be prepared for an appropriate response to those comments when they come?
Yes.
Good, because it's going to be coming, and they're going to say the bond over. Yeah, it's ridiculous, but they'll say, "Yeah, the bond oversight committee is no good. They're not watching things, and they should have been aware."
Just to say, the board has made no formal decision for any school closure, so that the conversation is still happening. And schools in the past, things were still, we still have students on campus. So this is a conversation that the board will have now. So as we get deeper in those conversations, there'll be a lot of things that come out of that, but we're still waiting for formal direction from the board.
Good.
And this committee doesn't make any recommendations about where the money is spent. So it's really outside of our purview, frankly.
That's right.
I have one question again. I'm wondering why the reports, or I'm wondering if the reports could show the cumulative amount spent by vendor per project. Because again, looking, as a newbie, I've now looked I looked at all of these reports before I was a member in the last 2 times, and there's no history for me to understand what's already been spent by seeing just your quarterly expenditures. Is there a way to have a line that says spent to date for this project?
We do that on the annual report. It has all the cumulative totals for all quarters. So what we're trying to do in these meetings is only reduce it down to the quarter, so that all we're doing is reviewing 1 quarter at a time, which was the last quarter that just closed.
Is it a great deal more work to have that cumulative figure as the quarters go on through the year?
It's hard to do because it's not apples to apples, it's apples to oranges. Then the encumbrance report and the vendor's report would be out of sync. But if that's what the COC wants, I do what the COC wants.
We'll review that.
I'm just new to, I'm just looking at this from new, fresh eyes, trying to learn what these numbers mean. Mostly, none of them mean anything to me. But if I knew which, I've said what I've said. So it's not my decision, but I'm just putting it out there.
Okay.
Right. And to go back to your point, Ms. York, you're absolutely correct. The COC doesn't approve the expenditures. They just review the expenditures to make sure that they were appropriate under the language of the bond. So so you are correct with that statement.
And so the point, Charmaine, so that you could know the exact amount that the contractors spent, that they spent for each project for each contractor, is that what you're wanting? Is that why you want it?
I think I wanted to know how we are, how far along we are in spending the money that's been allocated for that project. I think that's why I want it.
That would be a different report, I think, than what you just requested, right?
Yeah, I think that's what Mr. Pagnillo had requested as well. How much money we have left? How much have we spent?
Right. Oh, so that's a better way to report it. You're saying within this format. I think we're probably saying the same thing, but maybe Mr. Pagnillo has a better understanding of how to ask that question. Kevin.
Oh, Kevin, yes. My feeling on this is I don't want to have our committee burden the staff with creating too many reports if they're not easily generated. We do have the annual report. What you're asking is, something that I think the school board really should be asking, and they get the annual report. I think I'd prefer to just leave it up to the discretion of the facilities people here if they want to produce those sort of charts for us, and they might be actually useful for the board too to look at, because I'm guessing that's a question that they get from the public. It's a little, for us, it's a little more shaky because, really our, where we really hit the meat of what we're supposed to be doing is when we do that tedious looking through all the expenditures and looking at all the, for the quarter and what we saw on that warrant list to make sure that everything is fitting in place. But I always say the bond oversight committee is a powerful tool to tell people in the community that the money is being spent and being spent wisely, properly, and quickly. So under those circumstances, Paul, I'm going to leave it up to you about how you would like to do this. But just keeping in mind that committee members say, we like looking at the quarters here, but it's hard for us to see this in the larger context.
Charmaine, have you read the annual report?
That was at the last meeting? Was
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, if you read the annual report first and see if that gives you a perspective, I think that might help you. And then if that doesn't solve the question in your mind about, if that's not enough, then maybe we can come back at the next meeting and readdress it.
Okay. And again, that was in the packet that we received for the November meeting.
Well, there is a draft there. I think that the final version is linked on the website. And also, keep an eye. Every couple of weeks, a school board meets. And sometimes they have on their presentations about how construction is going. And the staff did present the annual report to the board at that time. And I think it's also good because then you get to hear what kind of questions the board asks. So it's good to always monitor that school board agenda. But maybe, Paul, would you be able to send everybody on the committee as a follow-up links to the annual reports? Or at least the last one?
They're on there currently.
They're on the site right now.
Yes.
So I'm hearing that
I'll
it's
email it to you tomorrow morning, Charmaine. I'll send you copies of the last several.
okay. Thank you. And so maybe I'm just hearing that that is a responsibility that needs to be made clear. Made clear to the COC board members that that's something we need to do, to go online to see the year end, to understand, the percentage of funds spent. Maybe I would suggest that at the end of the year, COC board members just get that as a matter of course to understand the wrap up of the year, because our last meeting is November. And yeah, so thank you for sending that to me, Heidi. And that's good to know.
Couple of comments here, Kevin, getting back to your question about doing work on schools that get closed. The real answer to that is those schools need to be kept up because they might be used by another entity as a school or as some other thing. So it's important that the buildings themselves be kept up to date in any format that whatever happens to that particular site.
Whether they're sold or subleased, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I agree. I'm just bringing up, as it was mentioned by Ms. York, this isn't really within our purview. We don't choose what projects are done and what aren't done. However, as community members, we just need to be aware that, we might get approached later as these controversial decisions start happening. And I'm sure that I could already figure what people in the community are going to start complaining and using it as a negative. So, we should just be aware of that. Are there any other comments from committee members? Yes, Dorothy?
Hi, I just wanted, Paul, may I call you Paul? I wanted to, or should I call you Mr. Anderson? I'm not sure. This is my second meeting, so I'm not sure if we're supposed to be real formal about this or not.
My mom named me Paul.
Oh, okay. I don't like being called Mrs. Emerson either, so just call me Dorothy. I just wanted to say thank you for the way that you went through and did the synopsis on the report, so that when we went page by page, it made it very easy to understand. So I wanted to thank you for that, because as being a new person on the board, it really, any detail you can give us like that, and where we actually are in the process on these different projects, it's very helpful. So thank you for that.
As was mentioned earlier, the reporting is much improved, so much so that now the public, I think, can just look at these reports when they're posted and get a good idea of what's going on. So the committee has been very good about being frank about what needs to be improved and what's great. So I think this oversight committee is fulfilling its role and doing it well.
Yeah, and Charmaine and the new members, I know these reports seem kind of overwhelming, it's like when it kind of gets into the nuts and bolts, but after several meetings, you'll start to get a perspective of all this. And so it will come into sight. I know this is like my 6th or 7th, and I'm just now really starting to understand the bigger picture scope. So it does come with time. So thank you for all the new members. We really appreciate it. And thank you for your questions, Charmaine. You're really digging in, and we really appreciate that.
Charmaine?
This does bring me to like a general question. I might have mentioned this at the last one, and forgive me if I can't remember what you might have answered, Kevin, but is there a little orientation where our new members could maybe have a Zoom with the vice and the vice chair to kind of get clear what it is we're looking for? I mean, I've read the bylaws, I've read what our responsibilities are. I've asked some questions of Paul and Ryan, specifically Ryan, excuse me, to get clearer on what our oversight ability, capacity is, but to kind of get like an hour of nuts and bolts of what it is we're looking for, what our, what the details are of what the work.
Yes, well, you have the presentations by Devin, the school district's legal counsel, who has a standard presentation for oversight committees about what they're supposed to do, what they're not supposed to do. We have to be very careful of something called the Ralph M. Brown Act, as it's called, which limits our, for public transparency, we have to do certain things and avoid doing other things. And I don't know when that would be scheduled again. Yes, Jermaine?
Do we have recordings from that? Perhaps, was that meeting recorded, that perhaps we could give access to an older one to the new members so that they could see that presentation again?
Actually, I did see that at the last meeting. Devin presented. I've also sat on a number of Brown Act boards, and I'm familiar with Brown Act. What I'm not familiar with is what I'm looking for as a COC member, specifically on these reports, which is much more detailed than Brown Act or Devin can give me in terms of what my work is. Does that make any sense to anybody? Am I the only one like?
For example, looking at the line items, what is something that requires further inquiry about, for example?
Or vendors, or it's just so detailed. Sorry. It's just so detailed that just, even a half an hour of, what you guys look for now that you've had almost 2 years, Carmel or more, Kevin, what are you looking for? What
when we first started, the reporting was so much less consolidated and so much, I mean, they invested in some really important reporting, and it's really made it so much easier for us to review it when we, back from the older committee. I mean, it was, it was a lot more manual, there were a lot more errors and things like that. So the reporting now is so consolidated, and we've actually refined it. Paul's responded to the committee in a certain way that it's kind of distilled everything down. Would you agree, Kevin? I mean, I think.
Yeah, and I wrote a big report for a think tank in 2015 about bond expenditures. And what you have to look out for is line items where it looks like they might be spending on things that the general fund should be spending on. One of the reasons why they put the Bond Oversight Committee in the first place is during the 1990s, some school districts were siphoning some of the money to pay teachers and do other things as a scheme. You always have to watch for something where you say, well, is that really construction? But now it's sort of ambiguous because you've got the funny thing is the Prop 39 that passed in 2000, the laws haven't kept up with changes in how people learn. So a lot of the expenditures such as laptops and software that goes in laptops for does this count? Should the trucks that people use to drive around to make sure the projects are being done correctly, is this counted? And there's all sorts of legal decisions, and the Attorney General writes up reports about what can be done and what cannot be done. So my general idea is if there's something there that isn't well defined, that I say, you know what, I'm not sure that this is actually related to the bond projects, and this might be something like routine maintenance or something like that shouldn't be counted, then that's when I ask the question about it. Or if I see something that's not construction related. I know what the Monterey County Weekly is. The state law requires you to advertise notices for bid. That all these little fees that are coming here and there, every government agency, particularly the DSA, you got to pay your fees. You got to go through this whole process to get money. I do know that it is allowed that that if you have personnel who's working specifically on bond expenditures, you can pay their payroll out of that sort of thing. That's one of the things that public sometimes gets on your case about is, you've got staff who's making money. That's not construction. And you have to say, well, they're actually working on the bond measure, and it doesn't really make sense to fund a construction project, but not do the money to make sure that the thing is actually managed properly. So those are the things I look at: ambiguities, questions, stuff that may slip through. There are some districts that are notorious for this, and this is not one of them.
But if there's $1 million in architectural fees, I don't think we're in a position to dig in and make sure that architect did what they were supposed to do. I think that's beyond the scope of this committee. To my knowledge, am I right, Ryan? Yeah.
So,
Yes,
one more.
that's true.
I'm sorry. So
No, go ahead, Miss. Go ahead.
One more question about the change in the reporting forms. And again, this is only the third meeting I've sat in. It seemed like, so when have the reports changed so much to the better? Was that just in the past 6 months or over the past 2 years? Carmel, while you've been on, has that been a slow progression or pretty quickly? Because again, I've looked at old reports and it's hard to kind of line them up because the formatting has changed. So I'm trying to educate myself, but it's kind of apples to oranges.
Right.
So when has the reporting been kind of like it is now, which is so much easier to read? Like recently?
Yeah, this time is different. I think you made some material changes from even the last meeting. Did you not, Paul? I mean, this was a massive, probably 4 meetings ago. It was looked like just complete raw data the whole time. There wasn't any subtotals of anything. There wasn't any consolidation of it into the contractor. There wasn't any, it was pretty much by P. It looked like a really old AS400 report. And now it's been consolidated down. Not only we're seeing it sort of two separate ways, which allow us to track stuff back to a contractor to see the amount of money going to that individual contractor, and then breaking down the expenses by the actual bond. So it's like, wow, it really gets into the scope. You can see, okay, they just bought lockers. Okay, 130 grand that you spend to give brand new rockers in the area. Yep, that makes sense. Okay, they just spent X amount of dollars on 7 buses. We sat in the bus. Yep, that makes sense. So, I mean, I think much more than that, it would be outside of our scope. And, we want to do our due diligence, but at the same time, we have to just review the data that we have. And if there's something that you want to drill down, by all means.
So yeah, the reporting has improved a lot over the last 2 years. I've only been here 2 years, and I inherited quite a bit when I got here. And so what I've tried to do is listen to the COC committee members and recreate the reports in the format that's easier for them to follow, not the reports that I can create, but the reports you want to review. So that's what we've done. And in the last year, I think we made significant strides in making sure that happened. We had a few personnel changes in our group, which also attributed to being more flexible with reporting. So it's a really, it's fluid, and we have the ability to update the reports. And I'm sorry, Ms. York, but AS400s, I know AS400s.
It was pretty bad. But so Charmaine, that's a little bit of the pushback. It's like, so the last several meetings were like, Paul, can you do this? Paul, can you do that? And he's actually done it. And this report was like, wow, you were so responsive. We said we wanted to see it 2 different ways. And that's exactly what got produced today. So I'm not saying, nobody's saying that we shouldn't do it the way you want to see it, but you should be on the committee a little longer before and look at and spend a little more time with some of the stuff, just so you can get more familiar with everything. And then it might fall into place. And then if there's something material you want to see, I think, it would come on, it would be more objective is all I'm saying. You're digging in, asking great questions, and those may be the right reports that you're requesting. But I think you need, maybe if you got a little more familiar with, over time, then things that we have done and why we've asked for them that way will come into focus, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
And besides the annual report, there's an independent audit that's done for each of the bond measures as well. That's required by law. If you really want to get deep into this stuff, when the bonds are sold, they have an official report that comes out that's in great detail. It's full of lots of great trivia and little facts you wouldn't know, but that material is available. And when I look at this, that's many school districts, their oversight committee hardly ever meets, and when they do, they just pass approve a 2-page propaganda document. So this committee is excellent. It's doing the job that's supposed to be doing. And you know what? The great thing is you're in a district where we don't find problems like in other places.
Yeah, but we're looking. That's our job to look. So keep digging. So I move to adjourn. Anybody else?
Is there a second on that? Very good. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned at 6:22. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your service. Thank you, staff, for helping out. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, staff.
Have a great
Appreciate
night.
you guys. Great.
Bye.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for all the hard work.